Hello again guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's video we're doing something a little bit different. As you can see we are currently in DCS and we are in the F5E. As I'm sure that many of you are aware, the latest beta for DCS has just been released, bringing it up to version 2.7. As usual, the beta brings with it a number of changes and improvements to the sim. Most notably, as you can see for yourselves, the weather effects within the sim have been vastly improved, and I have to say the sim is now looking absolutely stunning. Anyway, I thought we'd take a very quick flight in the sim from Batumi over to Kutaisi. Really just have a little bit of fun and check out the wonderful new weather effects within the simulator. In this video we'll rather be killing two birds with one stone. I did have a viewer reach out to me asking if I could do a flight in the F5E with a cold and dark startup. So I thought in the video today we'd first carry out the cold and dark start, as I say depart out of Batumi, headed towards Kutaisi. As always guys, I do hope you enjoy the video. If you do, please consider giving it a like and subscribing to the channel. Let's now head for the cockpit of the F5E and get the aircraft started up. So welcome to the cockpit of the F5E. As I say, we'll get the aircraft started up, we'll make our quick hop over to Kutaisi, taking in the rather new awesome weather effects as we go. So first thing we'll do, we'll get the aircraft's battery on. Generators can come on as well, and the same for the left and the right fuel boost pumps. As you can hear, there's a pair of F4 Phantoms starting up just on our right. They should be departing out just ahead of us. Anyway, continuing with the startup, we'll call our ground chief, ask him to connect the aircraft's ground electrical and ground air supply.
Chief, turn on the ground power. Copy. Ground power is now on.
Okay, so we have ground power, and as I say, we'll now connect the ground air.
Chief, connect ground air supply. Copy. Ground air supply is now connected.
So the aircraft is now essentially set up for the start. We'll just lastly call air traffic control and request our startup clearance. So we'll turn our UHF radio on and we'll tune up Batumi, which is 260.0.
Batumi, Colt 1-1, request startup. Colt 1-1, Batumi, cleared for startup, wind 340, at 6 meters per second.
So we are cleared for the start, the nav lights and the beacon can come on. And we'll call the ground chief once again, we'll ask him to apply the ground air to the aircraft. We'll be starting the left-hand engine first.
Chief, apply ground air supply. Copy. Air is now applied.
Looks like the Phantoms are just taxiing out to the runway now. Waiting for 10%, which we now have, so we'll engage the left engine starter and move the left throttle into the idle detent. Of course, monitoring the engine as it spools up. And it looks like we have a good start on the left engine. It's now stabilised, parameters look good. So again we'll call the ground chief and ask him to apply the air to the right engine.
Chief, apply ground air supply. Copy. Air is now applied.
Again waiting for 10%, which we have. Engaging the starter and moving the throttle to the idle detent. There goes the first of the Phantoms. And looking like we have a good start on the right hand engine as well, that's now stable. We'll just wait for the second Phantom to depart before we call our crew chief again. Never one to pass up an opportunity of watching a Phantom take off. So off he goes. And as I say, we'll call the crew chief, we'll ask him to disconnect the ground air and the ground power.
Chief, disconnect ground air supply. Copy. Ground air supply is now disconnected. Chief, turn off the ground power. Copy. Ground power is now off.
So all of the ground services have been disconnected from the aircraft. We can continue with our before taxi checklist. The speed brakes have been retracted, flaps will set to auto, showing full in preparation for takeoff, and the flaps have extended. Yaw and pitch dampers can come on. We'll close up the canopy, turn on our oxygen supply, and the pitch trim will set for takeoff. We're looking for a pitch trim of 6 units up. And that is set. Altimeter, so the aerodrome elevation here at Batumi is 33 feet. And that is set. Standby attitude indicator we need to set to -3 degrees. That is set, and the same for the primary attitude indicator, we'll set that to -3. Pitot heat can come on. Wheel chocks have been removed. We'll reset the master caution, and we don't have any caution lights on the panel. For the radar and the radar warning system, we'll leave those off. We're not going to need those for today's flight, of course. And we'll set the auto balance to the left low. As you can see, the left hand tank reading less than the right hand tank there. Interestingly, the left hand and the right hand tanks on the F5E are actually slightly different sizes. For the takeoff, we're looking for a rotate speed of 145 knots, so we'll set that. And lastly, just before we call for our taxi clearance, we'll set up the TACAN for the route. So the Kobuleti TACAN is 67 X-ray. And there we have 67 X-ray, we'll just leave that identifying for now. Course out towards Kobuleti is 026. And the runway heading will be a heading of 310. Just for reference, of course, there's no autopilot on the F5E. So we are all set and ready for the taxi. Just turn down the identifier there on the TACAN. We'll call up air traffic control and request our taxi to the runway.
Batumi, Colt 1-1. Request taxi to runway. Colt 1-1. Batumi, clear to taxi to runway 31.
So we are cleared for the taxi. Just turn the radio up there. I have noticed, I haven't flown the F5E for a while, but I do seem to recall there being issues turning down the identifier initially on the TACAN. We'll leave that for now. If it becomes a pain, then we'll just tune out of the correct channel momentarily until we need it later on. Anyway, chocks have been removed. We are cleared for the taxi, so coming up on the power. We'll hold down the nose wheel steering button on the stick. And we'll make our way out towards runway 31. We'll take the taxi at a fairly steady pace. The F5 doesn't really like to taxi too fast, particularly around corners. I have to say I'm very impressed with the visual fidelity now in DCS. It's been quite a while since I've used the sim, and it looks a whole lot better than I remember. Obviously we've got the new updates to the weather, but everything, including the lighting, particularly the bloom effects there, for example, much better than I remember. Although to be fair, I've only ever really used the sim in VR up until now, so of course the visual acuity there doesn't tend to be quite as good. Slowing the aircraft down a little bit for the turn. Now we'll just hold short at Bravo, finish the rest of our takeoff checks, and then we'll depart. So bring the aircraft to a stop. For takeoff checks, radar, again we'll leave that off for the flight today. Horizontal situation indicator, we've set the runway heading and the desired course. Nose strap will set to extend. That's going to raise the nose of the aircraft and give us a little bit more angle of attack for the takeoff. Lastly, we'll do a quick flight control check. And flight controls are checked. We won't call the tower for the takeoff clearance just yet. I find it doesn't tend to really work at the holding point, so we'll get ourselves onto the runway and we'll try for a clearance then. That being said, we are all clear on final. So just getting ourselves lined up, runway 31.
Code 1-1. Batumi, you are cleared for takeoff when ready. Climb 300 at QFE 29.70.
Okay, so we have our takeoff clearance. As I say, the sim is a little bit funny with that. He's cleared us up to 300 metres, which is roughly 1,000 feet, but we're going to disregard that clearance today. Obviously the aim of the flight is to get a little bit of altitude and have a little bit of a play around in the clouds on the way towards Kutaisi. Okay, so we're all set and ready to go. Feet on the brakes. Come up to 95% on the power. Now releasing the brakes. Just keeping the aircraft straight on the runway. And now all the way up on the throttles, engaging the afterburners. There go the burners. And just coming up through 145 knots, so coming back on the stick. Camera up. Tap the brakes, positive climb, gear can come up. And just coming up through 500 feet, so we'll start our turn out towards the north, headed out towards Kobuleti. We'll just get the nose down a little bit more, build up some more airspeed. We'll leave the burners in until we get through about 300 knots. Saying goodbye to Batumi. I have to say, this sim is looking absolutely awesome. Okay, coming out through 300 knots now, so we'll come off the burners. We'll get the drop tanks on now for the wings. As I say, we'll just climb up, through the cloud layer here. We'll play around in the clouds a little bit as we head out towards Kobuleti. Kobuleti is our first turning point, and after that we'll fly over the Takan there and head on towards Kutaisi. Be a very short trip, of course. You can see we're only currently 19 miles out from Kobuleti. And again, I'm just in awe of how awesome the sim now looks. It's really, really nice. A little bit of a shame about the ground scenery. That is starting to look pretty dated now compared to the likes of Microsoft Flight Simulator, but the lighting and the weather hold up just as well as any other sim. They're really absolutely top notch. Difficult to say really whether the clouds look better in this sim or in Microsoft Flight Simulator. I'm inclined to say Microsoft Flight Simulator still has a slight edge, but it's pretty close to call. Let me know what you reckon. So the pylon tanks there filling up the main fuel tanks, and we can see we now have the imbalance again, so we'll turn it back to the auto balance with left low, just to keep the tanks nicely balanced there. Just coming up through 9,000 feet already without even using the afterburners. It's good fun to fly something with so much power. And obviously by fighter jet standards the F5E isn't even a particularly powerful beast. And up through 10,000 feet now, double checking we do have our oxygen system on. I mean, this is absolutely awesome though. It's so much better than the old weather effects in DCS, which really did let the rest of the sim down to quite some degree. $10 to run now towards Kobuleti. Just level out here momentarily and track inbound towards the Takan. Let's say the visual fidelity is just absolutely top notch. Anyway, just passing overhead Kobuleti right now. As you can see, there's the airfield just down below us. So we'll tune up Kutaisi, which is 4-4 X-ray. And looking for a course to Kutaisi of 056. There's 056 set. 32 miles to run out towards Kutaisi. We'll come back down below the clouds, we'll do a little bit of low level flying as we head out towards Kutaisi itself. Does make a nice change of pace as well from all of the GA flying and commercial aviation that we've been doing on the channel so far. Hopefully you guys are enjoying it as well. Just come out towards the north of the hills here, and then we'll track low level towards Kutaisi. Up to 500 knots there, still without the afterburners even engaged. Anyway, 80 miles to run now towards Kutaisi. I've been planning to make some DCS content on the channel for some time now, and this has definitely galvanised my resolve that I do need to do that sooner rather than later. And actually the first thing I was considering bringing onto the channel is the recent F5 campaign that came out. I really like the F5 in the sim, as I mentioned, and I think that could be really good fun, so let me know if you want to see that on the channel. Got a train just passing down below us on the left. Anyway, just coming up through about 10 miles to run inbound, so we'll pop up again just to give us better sighting of the airfield, and we'll start coming back on the speed, reducing our speed and getting ready for the approach. So a very short, sharp hop, as you can see, but I really enjoyed that, and as I said, I think the sim just looks absolutely stunning. We'll maintain around 300 knots for now until we get a little bit closer to the field, and then we'll start configuring for the landing. Should be visual with the field fairly soon. Unfortunately, the sun is making that a little bit trickier for us. I think I've got it now just off our 1 o'clock. I think I can make out the main runway already. So again, coming off the power. And it's been quite a long time since I've done a landing in this thing, so it should be interesting. So just keeping ourselves coming around onto final, we'll call the tower, try and request that landing clearance again.
Kutaisi, Colt 1-1, request landing. Colt 1-1, Kutaisi, check landing gear. Wind 340 at 6 meters per second, runway 25.
Okay, clear to land. We have a 12 knot crosswind out from the right. 3 greens. Having to crab a little bit here to account for the crosswind. A little bit of a float. Let's touch down. Deploy the drag chute. Now we can cut the chute, we'll roll right through to the end of the runway. So not too bad of a landing overall, considering it's been a while and there was a crosswind there. F5E though is a bit of a handful on the landing. It really just tends to want to stall on you more or less as soon as you come back on the stick for the flare. Anyway, we'll get ourselves slowed down nice and early for the turn. Vacating off to the right on the end of the runway here. And then we'll taxi out to the parking area and get the aircraft shut down.
Colt 1-1, taxi to parking area.
That's exactly what we'll do. Just engage the nose wheel steering now. And vacating off to the right. Get ourselves lined up straight. Come off the nose wheel steering again momentarily. We'll open up the canopy for the taxi in just so you can hear the engine sounds. Get the flaps up as well. And again, just slowing down for the turn. Flaps are up. So as I say, we'll just head for the apron here off our 1 o'clock. We'll head down the back of the apron, we'll get the aircraft parked up and shut down. So overall I have to say I'm really impressed with DCS. It's come along really nicely once again with the 2.7 update. And I must admit, as I say, I didn't really appreciate just how pretty it can actually look, given that I've always used it in VR in the past. It's certainly still preferable for me to use DCS in VR, especially if you're going to be dogfighting. It really adds to the immersion, of course, but graphically you do lose some of the fidelity there. Anyway, swinging the aircraft around. Nose wheel straight, bring the aircraft to a stop. There's no parking brakes in the F5E, so we'll just hold it on the brakes momentarily. Get the radio off. Takeoff can come off as well, as can the pylon tank and the auto balance. Oxygen can come off. We'll take the pitch and the yaw damper off. And we'll get the engine shut down. We'll shut down the right engine first. And the same for left. So we have two good cuts. The fuel boost pumps can come off, as can the generators. And finally we'll get the battery off. So there you go guys, I do hope you enjoyed our very brief outing in DCS. As I say, the flight really reminded me of just what a brilliant sim DCS is, I must admit. With the new beta and the new graphical upgrades, it looks absolutely stunning. And as I say, with the exception of the ground scenery, it's easily on a par with Microsoft Flight Simulator in terms of its graphics. As I mentioned during the video, I have been considering making some DCS content on the channel for some time now. I was thinking that my opening salvo of videos could be the recent F5E campaign that released for the sim. Once again, if that's something you would like to see, please let me know down in the comments section below. Anyway guys, once again, I do hope that you enjoyed the video. If you did, please consider giving it a like and subscribing to the channel. That's all for now, but thank you very much, and I'll see you all again soon.